The stories that we grew up knowing and loving from our favorite games are stories that we will carry with us until the end of time. But the stories that we know and hear about in our universe is not necessarily the same story in another. The young origins of Princess Rosalina is a story that we may know fondly, but in one universe where these Lumas are friends, and another, they're her enemies. Welcome to What If. Our story begins a very long time ago with a young girl. One day, this girl spotted a rusted spaceship holding a small star child. The star child seemed to be full of energy and a bit of a jokester as he tells the girl about his adventures through the stars and how he tricked his friend into stealing his own spaceship to crash land into her kingdom. Luma would urge the girl to take a trip into the spaceship far away from her home planet and explore the stars together where they could make some fun memories. And finally, after some long convincing, the girl decides to join the Luma. The two would then come up on a bright blue comet gleaming in space, and then they would make a voyage to the comet in order to explore it and see what they could find. They ran around the ice-cold comet and played tag and tons of other games with each other until eventually the Luma had an idea to play hide-and-seek. The girl knew that the comet wasn't big enough to play such a game, but anyways, she humored the Luma, and she began to count. Before she could even get to the number 7, she heard the thrusters on the space shuttle start up, and then before she knew it, the shuttle had vanished. The Luma had taken the ship and flown off of the comet, laughing hysterically, finding it to be a very humorous joke, leaving Rosalina down on the comet below. The girl at first was shocked and didn't know what was going on. She figured it was a trick until she realized after hours and even days had passed by that no one was returning to the comet. She was actually stranded and left alone. After crying for a very long time, she decided to get up and do something about her situation. For one, she was getting very hungry, and she knew that she's only packed bread, jam, milk, and tea. And she knew that the bread would only last her so long, so she rationed it out and ate a little each day until eventually she ran out. One day, a small, colorful star fell from space and landed on the comet near her. She was so hungry and desperate for food, she decided to try it and actually really enjoyed the taste. She decided that this would be her source of food for the meantime, and every now and then a star bit would get so close to the comet, allowing her to use her butterfly net in order to capture them and eat them as her source of food. Being alone for so long began to make her delirious. It's been weeks and months have passed by, and nothing has come by the comet in order to pick her up. But one day, she sees a Luma flying by far away from the comet, and suddenly it starts shaking and moving in weird ways, and then finally a big ball of light flashes through space. She sees a giant comet blast through the stars after the Luma had seemingly transformed. And in this exact moment, something changed in Rosalina. Her mind twisted and bent and went restless thinking about the Luma that left her here, so she started her revenge. She found tools deep within the comet, so she started to build her own kingdom from scratch, and decided to put her appetite behind her and started saving the star bits that flew by the comet in order to put them in a giant appetizing pile for nearby Lumas to see and wander towards the planet. After her structures were complete, she sat and waited by the pile patiently with her butterfly net until one day a wandering Luma barely caught a glimmer of the pile of star bits on the comet, and it made its way towards the comet ever so slowly. Rosalina then jumps out from beneath the pile and captures the Luma with her net, and the Luma, obviously in pure shock, has no clue what's going on and begins to become very frightened. The girl was furious as she placed the Luma in her leftover jam jar, and she went on and on and on about how she was left here and stranded, but the Luma was trying to tell her that it wasn't his fault. The girl tells the Luma that she knows that they can transform. She's seen it with her own eyes out in the deep space, and she orders the Luma to transform the comet that she's on currently, so that way she can finally be in motion again. Forced against his will, the Luma combined with the ice planet and exploded in a great light that shimmered throughout the galaxy. And Rosalina made sure that her first stop would be none other than back home where she was born. When she returned home to her kingdom, it was a wasteland. No father, no brother, and of course, no mother nobody to welcome her. She was all alone. The once beautiful ivory castle was now overrun by moss and vines that corrupted the sides of the walls. It was barren. It was a wasteland. The girl sat there beside her favorite tree and cried, and she cried a very good long cry. As the day went by, she sat there, didn't know what her next move should be. She was gone for so long, there was nobody left for her, so her mind continued to think about that Luma that visited her so long ago, and the tears slowly dry up, and her fist clench. Her anger boils to a new level, and she stands up and stares right back at the comet. After many sleepless nights of working and crafting and building her ultimate creation, she finally constructed the Comet Fortress. This fortress would scour the galaxy, collecting Lumas and using their power to further power up her fortress. With a newly found hatred for the Lumas, Rosalina was now the galaxy's most feared cosmic being. Well, many years pass, and it's time for the Star Festival down in the Mushroom Kingdom, and it kicks off the way that you definitely remember. But something is different with this story. The festival is definitely interrupted, but not in the same way that you might remember. Instead of Bowser's airship armada coming in and absolutely destroying everything in the festival and taking Peach and the castle with him, his airship armada actually is crashing down from the ground, falling down from deep space out of nowhere, with flames spreading all across the festival, and Bowser Jr. crashing and landing as well. Bowser and Bowser Jr. look absolutely terrified and tell of their grand scheme to collect power stars in the galaxies above in order to rule the entirety of the Mushroom Kingdom and every other surrounding kingdom. They tell Mario and the others how their plan was foiled by an evil space witch, which seemed to use the powers of the Lumas in order to collect their energy and the energy of the power stars. When Bowser tried to challenge her, they ultimately wiped out his entire fleet and sent them flying back towards the Mushroom Kingdom. Hearing this, Peach is startled as she stands there clutching a Luma that she has found of her own, and realizes that they have to do something to help the Lumas out there in the galaxy. Hearing this, Mario steps up to volunteer to head to outer space to find out just what's going on, so they get help from Professor E. Gadd, who helps to build Mario a rocket that not only gets him into space, but allows him to travel through it as well and go from galaxy to galaxy as he pleases. Before he leaves, Peach gives Mario the Luma that she's been holding onto, and it grants Mario the power of the Galactic Spin, which helps him to defeat the enemies and foes that he'll come up against. Mario's adventure now begins as he blasts into the sky and deep into space to go from galaxy to galaxy, saving any trapped Lumas, collecting power stars, and obviously stopping this mysterious witch right in her tracks. The story from here plays out very familiar to what we've seen before, but there's a slight difference. With Rosalina at the helm of the galaxy, she can actually change some galaxies in the way they actually work, by using the Lumas to transform and intervene for her evil doing. While working on and testing the Lumas, she found a way to manipulate their transformation so she can weaponize it and do pretty much whatever she wanted. And once she heard about a hero coming to stop her, she decided to shoot Lumas to each galaxy that he would visit in order to manipulate what would happen in that galaxy and spread darkness across the galaxy itself. And these are just a couple of examples of her dirty work. For Honey Hive Galaxy, she actually sent a Luma to create a giant comet that swarmed the planet with poisonous honey. So every single time a bee would come in contact, it would cause them to have an illness, and the whole planet is covered head to toe in this honey. In Space Junk Galaxy, she would send Lumas to create giant black holes, and I'm not talking about little ones, huge ones that would suck up and pull anything that came near it. This would make things extremely hard for Mario to traverse because the pull would be very catastrophic, as it would pull Mario from every which way, making him curve and bend around these black holes, nearly getting sucked in. He then would send a Luma to transform into a water comet to absolutely flood the entirety of Beach Bowl Galaxy, leaving no land left behind, and everyone has to survive underwater or stay afloat until Mario can figure out how to drain it. Massive snowstorms and giant heat waves would hit Freeze Flame Galaxy, making the snow regions covered in feet of snow, and of course the hot regions super hot to the point where Mario needs relief after a while if he spends too much time there. Violent thunderstorms and very heavy winds will hit Gusty Garden, making it extremely gusty, almost hard to control when Mario's in the air flying around with the dandelions. Not to mention torrential downpours, lightning strikes, and yes, even pop-up tornadoes. In Toy Time Galaxy, instead of a giant Mecha Bowser, it was now a giant Mecha Rosalina. It also had a giant robot magic wand. Deep Dark Galaxy would be plagued with darkness, where you could barely see anything around you, and Mario has to find ways to light up the surrounding area to even know where he needs to go. The Melty Molten Galaxy is filled with meteor showers of molten lava rock falling from the sky. But during Mario's adventure throughout the galaxy, he would free Lumas and collect power stars, which would help to power his rocket ship, and he would occasionally run into the Galactic Witch herself. And she was mean and cold-hearted and wanted nothing to do with Mario. She wanted every Luma and needed to find the one that had abandoned her so many years ago when she was a child. Mario will have no choice but to battle her, and the fight will go very similar to what we may know in our galaxy when Mario fought Bowser. She will have a giant force-filled shield around her that you will need to spin break a couple of times in order to chip it down, completely shattering it. Mario then will get thrown back and has to play a dead man's volley game, where Rosalina will charge up a very powerful Luma and blast it towards Mario, where he has to keep knocking it back and forth between each other until eventually it knocks her out and flips her over the planet. She had also possessed and controlled Lumas to work for her as well, and they would use a very similar spin attack to try to hit Mario, but once Mario spin attacked them, they could actually knock off the poison and revert them to their normal selves. But after every defeat by Mario, she continues to tell him that nothing will stop her master plan, not even Mario himself. She will collect all the Lumas and continue to make any galaxy that stands in her way suffer until she finds the one that she is looking for. After collecting the final Grand Star and every Power Star he needed to blast his ship as far as he could reach it, he then sent himself into the center of the galaxy, where Rosalina and her Comet Fortress awaited. Mario could not make it to her fortress with his ship. He had to land and make his way through a grueling gauntlet sent by Rosalina in order to take out generators placed around her fortress to lower the shields in order to enter the fortress itself. Finally, Mario powers down all the shields to the fortress, and now he has to scale to the very top, where he has to also defeat her Luma guards and dodging any traps that she had left along the way. He finally makes it to the top, where he comes face to face with Rosalina for the final time, and she tells Mario face to face that this is the final battle, that either her or him go. There is no in between. She needs to capture every Luma that she can in the entire galaxy, and Mario has gotten in her way for the final time. She then takes Mario to a nearby planet, where the first phase will initiate. She will cover herself in stone, with one piece of the stone being exposed that Mario can actually shatter and break in order to reach her shields and take her down like before. Phase 2, she will send them both to another planet, where this time her shield is covered in electricity, where Mario cannot touch it or even spin it the entire time without knocking it out with something else on the planet. For instance, he can use nearby coconuts and also the stretch plants that reside on the planet in order to break the shield down. And moving on to the final phase, Rosalina will take Mario to the third and final planet, where they will once again battle the same way they've been doing throughout the course of the game, where Rosalina will charge up Luma shots and blast them at Mario after he's already taken down her shields. Mario then sends back the final Luma with a powerful spin that returns right back to her and blasts her off the planet. Rosalina had definitely lost, but she had not been defeated. Not yet. She then moves the Comet Fortress across the galaxy and positions it right above the Mushroom Kingdom from space, and she charges up a massive beam, sucking up all the energy from every Luma she had captured to absolutely obliterate the Mushroom Kingdom and the entire planet. But as the laser was charging up, she noticed another rocket ship flying towards the fortress. She watches the ship land into the fortress before blasting it out of the sky, and Rosalina stops for a second. Princess Peach actually comes out of the space shuttle and slowly approaches Rosalina. She grabs her hands and looks her in the eyes and tells her everything will be okay. Peach then scoots out of the way, and Rosalina catches her eye on two figures coming out of the smoke from the rocket ship. She's in complete disbelief as she's greeted by her long-lost brother and father. She instantly begins to cry and hugs the both of them as they both share their experiences of what has happened. As her father tells her that after losing Rosalina at such a young age, he decided to leave the kingdom and started to really focus on his family more. How it completely destroyed him, how he blamed himself all these years. And that if it wasn't for Peach and her research in order to find them, they never would have known about her whereabouts. Her brother tells her that what she's been doing is wrong and that Mother would be very sad that this is the woman that she had become. As Rosalina was sitting in thought, somebody else came out of deep space and through the smoke. It was a Luma, a small Luma that flies over towards Rosalina. Instantly, she knew who it was, and the Luma started to bawl, crying over and over again, not even able to get a word out. The Luma finally looks up at Rosalina and says, "I am sorry. I am so sorry." He tells her that he only wanted to be gone for a little bit as part of his prank, to act like he actually left, but after flying too far away from the comet, he found himself in quick trouble, where he was almost sucked into multiple black holes, and then he found himself on a lost course in the middle of nowhere. He tried to travel the galaxy and look for her. After days and weeks and months, he finally just gave up. He could not find her and felt horrible about leaving her on that comet. He went back to where his friends once were and found them all missing, and found out from a couple of Lumas later on that a witch had been hunting Lumas across the galaxy. So he decided to lay low and hide out so he could dodge the witch's attacks, until he realized who the witch actually was. When he found out, he rushed to her aid immediately. Rosalina then began to laugh, her anger slowly draining from her body, and then back to sadness again. Tears started to roll down her face as she realized that she has caused irreversible damage to the Lumas in the galaxy. Rosalina immediately stood up after hugging the Luma and decided to transform the fortress into the Comet Observatory that looks a lot more roomy and more like a home for her. This home wasn't just for her. She healed all the Lumas that she had poisoned and freed all the ones that she had captured. She would now use the power of the power stars that she had already to go throughout the galaxy collecting Lumas in order to be their protector. All the Lumas now looked to her as their mother. Mario and Peach had returned to the Mushroom Kingdom, and Rosalina went back home with her family to revisit where she grew up with her star buddy in hand. Rosalina couldn't help but still being sad and disappointed in herself. Then the Luma looked at her, tapped her on the shoulder, and began to cry a little as he smiled and told Rosalina one last time, "I'm sorry for everything. This one is for you." Before Rosalina could even stop him, the Luma blasted into the sky and exploded into a great bright light, and out of nowhere in thin air, a giant, mystical, beautiful rainbow sprinkled across the starlit sky, perfectly positioned above the castle for all to see, and the rainbow would last there forever. Rosalina bawled her eyes out and realized what the Luma had actually done. She would never see him again, but his reminder was there within the rainbow. That very night, she fell asleep beside her favorite tree and had a dream where she once again saw her mother. Her mother was faced away from her, not moving, not speaking. Rosalina looked up and told her, "I'm sorry, Mother. I have failed you, I have failed Dad and brother, and I have failed my kingdom, not to mention, I failed the Lumas." She runs and holds her mom, and her mom grasps her, telling her, "Rosa, we all lose our way one way or another. It's how we place ourselves back on the right path that matters. As I was a mother to you and your brother, you are now a mother to the Lumas." Then Rosalina's mother looks down at her and tells her, "I love you no matter what happens, Rosalina. You are strong, you are brave, and you are a good woman. And you will forever be my little princess." And to this day, the rainbow remains as a guardian to Rosalina's kingdom. She would continue to keep her word to protect the Lumas with all of her might. She was their mother after all. So after being stranded on that comet all these years, Rosalina finally found her way back to who she really was, the true mother of the Lumas. There are so many stories out there that you might be familiar with within the Nintendo universe, but in another universe, all these stories happen in various different ways. This is What If. Thanks to Mario and Peach, they were able to save the Mushroom Kingdom and the entire planet, and the galaxy as well. However, with all the commotion and all the rumors of an evil space witch ruling the galaxy, it was able to get the attention of someone else.